Tell me how you know. I've been searching high and low, and I can tell you one thing: for big titties, but naked women just don't fall like the sky, you know. Tell me how you know. I've been searching high and low, and I can tell you one thing: for big titties, but naked women just don't fall like the sky, you know. Don't fall like the sky, you know. Sky, you know. Don't fall like the sky, you know. They so valuable. I've been searching high and low, and I can tell you one thing: beautiful big titties, but naked women just don't fall like the sky, you know.
Oscar mixing with balloons. Piece of passion, also full time. Eat all the perkies, also full time shit. Kick slow flow, jitsu type shit. Real like my dreadlocks on blood type shit. Cook a nigga up like food type shit. Push up in my palace, fucking type shit. She creeping all on my balls, I got a moon type shit. Times they cover my flaws, I had the brand new type shit. Hell around jump with the burst, I like a new type shit. All of my chances say I think I'm over type shit. Put the whole thing with the gang, that shit my man.
His passion was a sort of madness. He was a man possessed.
Never ran, I distract in the field. You don't wanna see me back in the field. Fuck around and start taxing for real. Stay raw, that's for maximum feel. You don't really know what passion it is. Stating facts, I ain't asking for real. I can tell you fight for a meal. I go deep in the dark for a thrill. I can feel my grandpa through the chills. You ain't even gotta ask, we working. Waiting on the last call, close curtain. I'ma set a mousetrap, who lurking? I just stay tapped in through the urges. Am I in the astral or earth is? Hard to tell cause it's two worlds merging. Never ran, I distract in the field. You don't wanna see me back in the field. Fuck around and start taxing for real. Stay raw, that's for maximum feel. You don't really know what passion it is. Stating facts, I ain't asking for real. I can tell you fight for a meal.
I can tell you're not masking for real. More like mass and gills. I was in a max like steel. Felt real pain like Max. Now my shit clean, Ajax. Thought I was a CNA. Where I was passing pills. Thought I had a CPA, 10K in a day. But nigga, I'm taxing still. I win the game, then take the fame, yeah. This that Paxton feel. Put up the numbers, no contract, we under. Nigga, went from meek to the mills. I got a money tree. I got a honeybee. Broke hoes don't get none of me. Held me back, then they gon' front on me. But we here now, and it's kinda weird how,
Never ran, I distract in the field. You don't wanna see me back in the field. Fuck around and start taxing for real. Stay raw, that's for maximum feel. You don't really know what passion it is. Stating facts, I ain't asking for real. I can tell you and fight for a meal. Let 'em know. I can tell you and fight for a meal. I ain't asking for real.
Your favorite astrologer's favorite astrologer. Your favorite mystic's favorite mystic. You are traveling with the Hood Mystic. You are now tapped in with the Hood Mystic. Time to tap in now.
thumbs up, ones in the chat if y'all can hear me okay. Hope everybody is doing well. It's the Hood Mystic here with another video. Today we are going to discuss the spiritual meaning of Easter. Every word in there has impact. The identifying what's going down, spiritual, the unseen, invisible aspects to the visible aspects. Man, thumbs up, ones in the chat if y'all can hear me. I'm gonna look for this video. If you tried the Discord link and it didn't work before, try it again. It will work because I've updated the link. I didn't know I had to update the link in every video, so I'll start doing that. Join the Discord. Let's have a conversation after this video. Let's have a conversation before this vehicle. This is a vehicle / video. So yeah, man. I think his name is Myron Golden Tree. See if I can find a short of him. Man, I seen it on Twitter, but I'ma just guess paraphrase what he was saying. A tree grows upwards and the tree grows downwards. I didn't create that concept. I got that from Myron Golden. He said that the roots grow just as much as the actual tree. He goes on to say that the roots look similar to the upward tree. So let's think about this esoterically, matter of fact. The ways for which you show up in the world has a lot to do with the shadow work that you actually are doing. So when we talk about resurrection, we're talking about the spiritual, the roots. If that's an understanding that makes sense, we get a thumbs up, one in the chat. Let me know that y'all with me. And the reason why I'll ask for ones in the chat is because it'll show YouTube that y'all actually are engaging in the conversation. Because I understand that people be listening, taking notes, but help out the channel more than anything. A simple one in the chat, right? If there's a point you agree with, if it makes sense, put a one in the chat. If I start losing you, you can't hear me, the shit sound corny, it's not teaching you nothing, I'm going on a tirade, put a 2 in the chat. All right, simple. We gonna come up with some standards and rules on the stream. Therefore, 1, it'll be more engaging. 2, it'll bring more attention to the channel. 3, more people will understand the spiritual meanings of things. So we're dealing with the roots, right? And one would say, why do I have to deal with the roots when I can't see the roots? I don't understand the roots. But then when a person has depression, sadness, fear, doubt, anxiety, poverty, weight gain, inactiveness, sadness, motherfuckers just want to live in the turmoil, right? Just want to become a zombie or an NPC, non-playable character, because the conversations in reference to the roots are rarely being had. And the reason why is because we don't understand and understand Jesus. And when you don't understand and understand Jesus, Christ consciousness, then you are not resurrected. And when we look at resurrection, we're not talking about a blonde-eyed, blue-haired man in the desert 2,000 years ago. Can we get a one in the chat? Because if y'all be like, Hood Mystic talking about Jesus, he now talking about a white boy. We're talking about agriculture. We're talking about nature. Resurrection as in tree leaves. Bear witness to tree leaves resprouting every spring. One in the chat. If you can understand and understand that resurrection, then you could also understand your consciousness resurrection. Because it might be a cliche, it might be something that you're well aware of, but if you got your leaves snatched away from you, that's okay, because they'll resprout back in the spring. So we're talking about more than a blonde-haired, blue-eyed man that lived in the desert 2,000 years ago. We're talking about a very ancient concept that is much more centered in divinity, centered in God's chosen people, and also centered in the awareness of how an individual can have understandings and overstandings about God. Because when Jesus says, I am the way to God, I don't necessarily think that's a lie. Because you also see Ishu, you also see Mercury, you also see Hermes, you also see Thoth as intercessories or mediators between self and God, to which when we internalize godhood without a medium, we're more teetering over to narcissistic realities, grandiose realities. I need more, and more realities, which takes you further away from God. Thus, you need a trickster to keep you humble. So your life isn't actually your life because you have a soul, to which you can't actually pinpoint and identify your soul, because if you actually was without a mediator, you would think that you're the shit. And more or less, when you think that you're the shit, yeah, you might help people around you, you might help your community, but pretty much that's where it stops. And when you understand that even in our goodness, we're representing a level of carnality, of representing a level of evilness, to which we must be resurrected to a new mindset. So to continue on, I got an article. It's a free article. Link is in the description. You can read it, read ahead. A lot of the things that I'm going to be talking about is going to be pulling from this article. But with that being said, I wanted to step away from the article for a second and deal with the history of Easter. Because Easter it doesn't start with Christianity. So when conscious people become so advanced that they don't even understand and overstand equinoxes and solstices in reference to what they specifically mean, because we are in a universe. Uni means one, verse means song. So intuitively, you and the earth are one. So when you are in alignment with nature or the universe, the spring represents new beginnings for you, like new beginnings, conscious wise, internally. So they usually say that Easter is based upon a pagan holiday, but when you deal with pagans aren't a group of people that existed that did different things. Pagans come from the word pain, and the Pains are a family, a black family that created secret societies such as the Knights Templars. The original Knights Templar is a man by Hughes de Payens. And when you reference now, what did the Knights Templars do? They were a military force that escorted Jewish people from where they were living back to the homeland for their like pilgrimage. That was the original function, i.e. the Knights Templar originally were Jewish people that were a military force for Jewish people. Now, when they talk about the Passover is about Jewish people who lived in Egypt that were enslaved in Egypt and then eventually kicked out of Egypt and then went into the wilderness for 40 years. In the wilderness, they were fed manna. This is a mythology of a group of people called Jews. Now, the thing about the Jews in the Bible and in real life, the real Jews are unknown or unaware of who they actually are due to slavery in the wilderness and the continuation and propagation of biblical myth. So you also have arguments on what is what and who is who. But if you just sit back and ask yourself questions, the answers would have to be clear to you. And whether it's cognitive dissonance, believing what you have been told, but then also knowing that what you have been told is inherently a lie by liars. Now let's think about this. If I know who you are, but you don't know who you are, why, when I say, if I got on this platform and said I'm a nigga, nobody would say nothing all day long. But if 1,000 black people got together and said we the real Jews, people would have a problem with that. Now I'm asking you, if a liar told you a lie and you believed the lie, and as long as you said, if I got on this platform and told everybody I was an African, motherfuckers would be applauding me and it would be all love. But if I tell people that I'm an Israelite, people then look at you strange and look at you weird. If you say black people are the real Jews, people look at you strange and look at you weird. But if you read the Bible, and that's what we're going to do. Before we get into the Bible, we're going to deal with the background. But this is the day of resurrection. Resurrection means that something that has been dead, an ideology, a concept, a reality, becomes reborn again. And you don't have to be a Christian to observe it. Actually, Passover is celebrated right on top of Easter. Passover is the point in time for which God shows mercy on the Israelites who don't know that they're Israelites. The literal meaning of Passover. So one would beg to, and we don't observe any of the customs, honor any of the traditions. We don't observe Sabbath. Saturday comes around, you cut your TV on, your computer on, just as normal, get in your car, do everything you did on Friday on Saturday. Saturday, Sabbath have no reference to you. You don't care about it. But there are people that observe the customs. They don't have no electricity on Saturday. They don't drive their car. They walk to everywhere that they go to. Because they observe the customs, they would assume that they are the true children of the Most High. That would be an assumption. However, that assumption could never be the actuality. Because if you know if you know this by either religion or nationality or culture, you force the issue. You propagandize the issue. You stolen a culture through and through. And you know this. So when it comes to the true, they're going to go to the club on Saturday. They're not going to study their word. They're not going to get into the metaphysics of their word. They're not going to understand and overstand that they are children of the Most High. They're going to think they came here on Africa. They're going to think that they're going to think a lot of different things. Right? But we got to get into some real science and some real understanding. The pagans celebrated Ishtar, pronounced very similar to Easter, which was a day that also celebrated a resurrection. That one of the gods known as Tammuz. Now let's look at Tammuz. It's certain keys to the reality of gods and goddesses. The first gods and goddesses are agricultural deities. And at one level, it makes sense. You get to eat. You get to make money. You got to have some government to keep the rations. Like, you know, if I got a whole bunch of rations, what's going to stop barbarians or animals from taking all of the grain out of the shack? So therefore, that creates a military force. However, we got to start to get into the understanding of intelligence and where did it come from? Now, if you sat and thought about it, if you really sat and thought about it, if you really just said, where did the first person gain knowledge from? It would have had to come from eating something. Eating something, putting you in a trance-like state, giving you an idea, giving you a plan, giving you a vision, dare I say, executing on that vision, and motherfuckers looking at you like, how the fuck you just do that? And you tell them, I was eating this plant, I was eating this grain, I was eating this vegetation, and I got this vision. Nigga, let me get some of that plant. Take the plant. I got a vision too. Give it to this nigga. He take the plant. I got a vision too. Nigga, this is a god. Tammuz is a god. How do you know that Tammuz is a god? Because I ate him. I ate him. Now, let's go back. Tammuz came along in a very similar way to Jesus Christ. See, the thing about it, when we get into deep spiritual things, niggas want to learn it. Niggas want to be informed by it. They want it to speak to them, right? But I would say you probably gonna have to eat it. Now, this is Resurrection Sunday. One person would assume that eating the wafers and the grape juice, what somebody is doing at this very moment, is Sunday day at church having communion. This is the same idea. So when they say Tammuz came along in the same way of Jesus Christ, it's very simple. It's plain straight out in your Bible. And I don't even think that they're lying. But I also understand that when you got a carnal mind and you haven't done the inner work, you're not even gonna be able to even perceive this shit. You're not even gonna be able to perceive it. You're gonna be trying to figure out what you need to do. But remember when I said the more you trying to get out of life for yourself, the further it pushes you away from God? Remember when I said a spiritual death happens way before a physical death? When you stop being in alignment with what God has for you and you don't understand the intercessory of Jesus or Christ consciousness, what is Christ consciousness? Like, do you know what Christ consciousness is? All right. And another thing that we're going to do as spiritual people is say, because I don't study something, because I don't understand it or overstand it, because it doesn't resonate with me. Once in the chat, if you ever heard a spiritual nigga say it don't resonate with me, or it does resonate with me, right? To say that when it doesn't resonate with me, I don't have to deal with it. So Christ consciousness doesn't resonate with me, so I don't have to deal with it. Mind you, on every corner you go, you're going to see a church, a Christian church at that. So somewhere along the way, Christ consciousness have been embedded in the human DNA architecture. Why? Because it's evil. Okay. All right. Now you don't have to deal with it. Now you don't have to do any understanding or overstanding or no deep research because it doesn't resonate with you. You don't like that. It don't feel good. I left church a long time ago. That's what a nigga is going to say. So Tammuz, for lack of a better words, is an agricultural deity, a grain goddess, a grain god rather. And when you look at these entities and energies, you're gonna see a theme. And I've searched the internet all through it, and I never seen anything. So it's just, these are my own downloads, okay? I don't see anything about any of this stuff, okay? So let's look up Amenti, goddess of Egypt, right? Now, this is Amenti, and it's a Horus representing the rising sun. But the rising sun, like Jesus, is also a phallic symbol because the identification between a son and a daughter is a phallus. So what's perched on top of her head is a mushroom cap and a mushroom stem. But let's deal with Amenti. Let me show it to y'all because I didn't. This is the mushroom cap. This is Horus, right? And this is the mushroom stem. Now, I could be completely full of shit because these are my own downloads, right? You would have to say, no, that's not a mushroom cap. That's a tree branch that the Horus is perched on. And I would say, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. A tree branch. But to me, it looks like a mushroom cap. All right. But let's read about Amenti a little bit so we can understand. Now, it's either Imentet or Amanti. It's different names, but Amentet, meaning she of the West, was a goddess of ancient Egyptian representing the necropolises west of the Nile. She was the consort of Aken, a god who guided Ra through parts of the underworld. When we deal with mushrooms, we're also dealing with the underworld because the mushroom is the fruit. Okay, let's understand a tree. A tree has roots. So the tree of good and evil very well could be a mushroom because the ancient did not look at the root of the fruit of the tree and say that's all the tree ever could be. Only thing I know this tree to be is apples. And what I'm saying is that's how niggas is now. Only thing you see is the fucking fruit. You don't understand and understand the underworld or the root. The mushroom is the fruit, but the main part of the mushroom is what produced the fruit. The mycology, I can't even pronounce it half of the way. The mycorrhizal network, for lack of better words, is the underworld. Now, because we are Western people, right? We are people of the West. 10 times out of 10, we don't give a shit about the underworld. As I stated earlier, we only care about the fruit. We only care about the exterior. We only care about what we can accomplish in life. We're dead set on that. So when we talk about what God has for us or trying to understand our mission in life or trying to figure out what the fuck is we even on this earth for, you got to deal with the underworld. That's where the magic is at. That's where everything makes sense at. That's where you put two and two together at. That's where you figure it out at. You don't figure it out by the fruit. If you got an apple tree and you eat the apple, so fucking what? But if you understand how to plant an apple tree, you can eat for the rest of your life. One's in the chat if you can understand and understand that. Who gives a shit if you can go to the grocery store and buy fruit? Can you open a grocery store? That's the real shit. What can you actually do? What can you actually build? Because we can get into the conversation of, you know, man or woman, because there's a lot of you niggas that be having pretty privilege, right? Be in the gym with the gray sweats on and things of that nature. Yeah, you getting all of the fucking you want out of the situation, but what have you built? What have you created? Who have you helped? Who have you poured into? See, eating the fruit, it don't teach you nothing. Where you actually learn is the underworld, and this is the mythology. This is the mythology of Easter, and it starts in Egypt, wherever we get to Greek. So Egypt, Mesopotamia are like contemporaries. So these concepts, brother and sister, when you study them, they're not different, and they're generally talking about the same thing, right? So whether you're talking about Tammuz or Amentet, you're talking about a specific time of the year, a specific ritual, and a specific thing that you eat as an offering. And it's also very spiritual. It's also very shifting. So in real life, how does this manifest? One's in the chat if you're experiencing a new beginning of some sort in your life. New job, new situation, life-changing situation, something in your life is new. One's in the chat. This is how it manifests in real life. But if you understand and overstand how it's playing out in your real life, you're able to understand that this is a new beginning. It's a shift, it's a transition. It's an awakening of some sort. Once again, it's not about what you accomplish in life. It's about who you are. That's what you're in life to figure out. The underworld says more about you than what you produce. So once again, Imantet, right? If you get into it, you got the word amenti. Now, if you flip it a little bit, just a little bit, you get the word Amanita. Amanita muscaria is widely used as an entheogen by many indigenous peoples. Amanita, Imantet, the underworld, a muscaria, a mushroom, a fungi. Once again, it could be right in your face, but you're not going to care. You're not going to look at it because, once again, we're dealing with cognitive dissonance, which would be the main conversation for the nation. Niggas say, Kyrie, you said cognitive dissonance, but I don't even know what that is. What is cognitive dissonance? Let's look up what cognitive dissonance is together, and let's just understand it and overstand it as to why it is what it is. A conversation for the whole nation. Cognitive dissonance is the discomfort a person feels when their behavior does not align with their values or belief. Cognitive dissonance is a psychological phenomenon that occurs when a person holds two contradictory beliefs at the same time. So what does the carnal mind present that the divine mind cannot say? We can't exist at the same time, nigga. The carnal mind has a grain of sand that says this shit is all about me. So in the carnal mind is a lot of good people that can't get it right. The divine mind says it may or may not be all about you, but you need to submit to self. That's what the divine mind says. You need to submit to self. I had a channel earlier about the way why life is so fucked up. Because boys and girls go to the same school, right? But school ain't to teach you. School is to teach you how to submit. Now, I'm not saying that women are submissive. I'm saying that women have an easier time with submitting than boys. So that was just to say, if school was a strength competition where all you had to do was to be the strongest motherfucker in school, which would make more sense because in this world, only the strong survive. So let's just imagine we had a strength school and not a school that was centered in sitting down, taking notes, writing shit. Motherfucking women would say, man, this is unfair. They the motherfucking strongest niggas in here. We can't compete. You wouldn't never say, bitch, get over it. You would create a different standard for the woman, to which it would be a girl's school of strength and a boy's school of strength. To which don't send your kid to school with girls if you're a boy. Don't send your girl to school with boys because it's inherently unfair. And you gonna criticize your boy for not submitting. One's in the chat. He didn't sit down. I told him to sit down and he didn't sit down. I told him to stop talking and he didn't stop talking. You going to make your boy become submissive and agreeable in the workforce. When you get into the workforce, y'all been to that call center. It's a nigga answering getting every good call. You getting every call that they done called 29 times already. They so sick, they already know it's you when you call. They gonna talk to you for 20 minutes just to be like, nah, I can't do it. Just to fuck with you. But the nigga in the front answering calls left to right. He number one on the sales board, one's in the chat. He's a monster. And you trying to be on the calls, making sales, trying to be agreeable and nice, and it don't work. This world, you got to actually compete. So you better be around. The best thing for boys is to be around nothing but boys, because that's going to make them compete. I'm better than you. No, nigga, I'm better than you. No, I'm better than you. And you just keep ascending that ladder of competitiveness. But if it's boys and girls, some niggas is going to be competing, one's in the chat, and the rest of us is going to be like, yo, what's up with the hoes? Yeah, I had the schoolwork here, but I can't really actually focus on it because these hoes is out here twerking in class. So I just had that download earlier I wanted to share. Anyways, cognitive dissonance is a psychological phenomenon that occurs when a person holds two contradictory beliefs at the same time. When it's time for new information, that's going to have to challenge your previous beliefs. So in the spirit of Easter, the carnal mind is a contradiction to the divine mind. And you possess, I possess, we possess a carnal mind and a divine mind. Resurrection is the resurrection of Christ. But Christ also dies. Christ doesn't die, his flesh dies. This is ancient mythology. This don't have nothing to do with a blonde-haired, blue-eyed man in the middle of the desert 2,000 years ago. One's in the chat, if you can understand or overstand what I'm saying. This is what the holiday is about. So you can't be a spiritual being saying, well, I don't actually fuck with Easter. Easter is not my thing. It doesn't resonate with me. Because I love having matter-of-fact spiritual conversations, because otherwise motherfuckers is going to be ambiguous when it comes to spirituality, but you wouldn't be ambiguous to the measurements of your window, your door opening. You wouldn't be ambiguous to the dimensions of your tire. If you got 17-inch tread tires and you go to the tire place, like, man, I don't give a fuck what you throw in there. Just give me 4 tires. I don't give a fuck. It's just whatever I resonate with. Show me the tires that I resonate with. I resonate with that one. I resonate with that one. You wouldn't even be able to drive. So tell me what makes sense in being resonant with some shit when it's actual standards to shit. It's actual histories and downloads to shit. Now, once again, we're always going to have the conversation. The cognitive dissonance, I don't resonate with that. I don't deal with that. So therefore, I don't have to. Or I do resonate with it, and it's the bee's knees. Well, how do you feel? Like shit? Okay. What's the future looking like for you? Very bleak? Okay. How do you feel? Are you connected? Are you loved? Are you in the right state of mind that you're actually supposed to be in? More than likely not, because when you deal with people, you're dealing with the straight line of consciousness. But in the ancient mind, there was a cyclical rotation of consciousness that had a beginning, middle, end, beginning again. But in this patriarchal society, there is just a constant linear hierarchy that leads to the top. But in the mythology of Uranus and Mithras, Uranus is climbing to the top. He gets to the top, climbs through the top, and the nigga's at the bottom again. Like, what the fuck? I did all of that climbing. I did all of that ascending. I did all of that directional work. to just be at the point that I've started at, nigga. But one thing is to understand that, okay, I've done this cyclical loop and I was supposed to do it. So therefore I'm going to rejoice and feast on Easter versus I'm back to where I started, but I thought I was going linear. Now, we don't know shit about ancient thought and ancient understandings because that is, you know, back in the day type shit. And we are all into our technology, our pharmaceuticals. Man, how is that working out for you? I would love to know. Because every pharmaceutical is synthesized from plants, nigga. What? They did it just like, you can't just create a medicine. You got to get the actual plant, find out the codes to the plant, and then recreate the codes from the DNA of the plant. Now, why not have an understanding and overstanding of the plant right now? Why can't we talk about the plants right now? Why can't, you know, motherfuckers got all types of shit, flat screens. Niggas got a TV in every room. One's in the chat. But their herb cabinet is fucking scarce. One's in the chat. Nigga ain't drunk no herbal tea in an ill minute, but drunk a motherfucking Coke 45. Drunk a goddamn beer. They'll smoke some loud, right? But haven't drunk no tea whatsoever. Now, your ancestors will look at you like you a damn fool. Like, what the fuck is wrong with this nigga? You mean to say he ain't drunk no tea whatsoever? All he drink is goddamn Hennessy. One's in the chat. That's all he drink is Hennessy. The Greeks had a complex relationship with religion, as anyone who's read their mythology knows. The gods were fickle and self-involved, leaving people with the impression that sometimes life is just downright unfair. The stories of Zeus pursued by Hera, Poseidon against the quick-witted Odysseus are rather nasty, with three beautiful goddesses duke it out over the golden apple, are all perfect examples of the cynicism embedded in Greek religious thought. Despite their doubts about the gods' interest in the happiness and well-being of mankind, the Hellenes had a few holy practices that were treated with a great deal of reverence. And some ethnomycologists who studied the connection between fungi and human society are convinced that these rituals were facilitated by the use of psychoactive fungi. One of the questions that I've actually been thinking about as of late is what type of person is interested in psychedelics? Growing up, I would imagine long hair, white boy, tie-dye shirt, talking about peace. He got on like some rose-colored glasses. His jeans got mad dirt stains on it. Might have a hole or two. His shoes dirty as the fuck, but they white. But he wear them every day. But he cool as shit. He don't stink or nothing. He always got the best weed. That's what kind of person I thought would be interested in psychedelics growing up. One's in the chat if you had that viewpoint. Now in my grown up adult age of operating and running a community business, the reality of people that actually purchase, there is no archetype. Like, I know some like ghetto ass, I mean, yesterday, like, she cool. I hope she ain't watching this. But she always come to the door with her ass out. And it's like, we in the D. So like, she cool, but she ghetto. She ghetto, but she love her shrooms. But I also can go to like
the nicest places that you ever seen or could imagine. People that got more money than I ever could ever think that you could have, and they want to tap into psychedelics. So I'm referencing the connection between fungi and human society. What type of person taps into fungi, taps into psychedelic things? Well, the Greeks did. Whether we're talking about the Eleusinian mysteries, the Dionysian mysteries, the oracle at Delphi, were all Greek traditions in which the celebrants were unbridled by everyday reason, beheld visions, and believed the gods spoke to them and informed their actions. Although there is no solid evidence or reference to fungus being consumed at these rituals, the possibility that the Greeks were religious mushroom trippers is an idea that persists in the mythology community today. Now, when we look at Greek mythology, Jesus is just another interpretation of Zeus or Dionysus, and he had to be, because these were Greek-speaking people. You're not going to introduce a new religion without incorporating the old religion and its traditions for it to be symbiotic. You got to match it with something. And so the Christians, the early Christians, did everything in reference to Dionysian rituals, and the Dionysus rituals were connected to religious experiences, a group of women, a group of men and women, a group of men that more than likely trip fucking balls with the pursuit of having a religious experience. And these particular experiences became the foundation for truth. In a world that had to be civilized, because not only did you have barbarians, you had wild animals. How was you going to get around that? Once again, where did intelligence come from? One would say it came from aliens. Niggas just randomly came up with it. Some would say evolution. And I would say through the consumption of psychedelic plants and funguses. Some scholars believe that ecstatic rituals of the Greeks were fueled by the use of a fungus called ergot, a toxic and hallucinogenic fungus that grows on grain. Why is that important? Because Tammuz and Ishtar are grain goddesses. Grain goddesses, Ishtar is just another way of saying Eastar or Eastern Star. Agricultural goddesses that these gods, you don't spawn out of nowhere. You don't meditate and get a download one day. When you talk about, we talked about this earlier, when you talk about rituals, you're talking about rules. And when you have rules such as take this psychedelic plant with this herb, you're also creating a desired effect. The only thing is we just don't understand it or overstand it right now. So the next thing I want to talk about is Gospel of Thomas, saying 51. And this saying is in reference to the resurrection. Now I'm going to read the text and I'll read some commentary on the text, and then we'll just continue. Jesus said to his disciples one day, Jesus' disciples said to him, they're asking him, on what day will the rest of the dead come into being? And on what day will the new world come? he said to them, what you await has come, but you do not know it. So when we are discussing Resurrection Sunday or Passover or Easter, we can pinpoint this day, but we can also understand and overstand that any day can be Resurrection Sunday. Any day can be Passover, right? Any day can be Easter, because it's not about when, it's about now. And it's not about what you do, it's about who you are as a spiritual being. This is the goal, essentially. Because we're wondering, when are we going to be successful? When are we going to move? When are we going to have our child? When are we going to have our new car? When are we going to have this new this or this new that? Well, the Gospel of Thomas says it's already happening right now within you. You are what you're waiting for. Can you handle it? Can you address it? Can you grasp it? Can you embrace it? Can you love it? Can you see it? Because you can't be waiting for shit in 2024 if this was written 2,000 fucking years ago. It been here for 2,000 years or more, because we're talking about ancient grain goddess ritual spring equinox things. So inherently, if you was a black person, y'all went and did something on Easter. Y'all got dressed, y'all went to church, and y'all ate. I feel like every black person has had that experience at least 1 year. It's always been here. And so, once again, that would understand why you don't have to do the observances like people that are trying to be what you already are. However, I would say, if you do feel that you are Israelite, if you do feel that you are God's most child of the Most High, if you do feel that you are a part of the original people, then, and you want to observe certain observances, I don't think it would hurt. I don't think that honoring the Sabbath is a bad thing. I don't think that, understanding and overstanding the observations of the universe, because Passover coincides with a full moon. It's always going to be the Monday, it's always going to be on a Sunday after the first full moon of the spring equinox. So it ranges from March 22nd to April 25, just depending on when the full moon is. So that's telling you two things. We are a universal people connected to the stars, whether we know it or not. Let's read some of this commentary. Stephen says, the knowledge and wisdom is already inside of you, and you are not at the level to understand, to grasp its truth. That is why we are doing the knowledge, so to speak. Never will I say, I understand who I am. Never will I say, I'm finished with my mission here on earth. I'm not going to say that, ever. Because I can never be at the level to understand my soul. Life and death has given me an opportunity to begin to ponder and reflect on its truth, but I don't grasp it in totality. I'm still doing the knowledge, I'm still doing the research. This is clearly criticizing the sects who concern themselves entirely with the future apocalypse and not with the mystical teachings. Because there's some religious organizations that's going to say that the world is going to end every year, every day. And we still here. You know how many people that said that that made money and got followers off saying that they know when the world is going to end. And the Bible is not even talking about a time in the future. It's talking about right now. Revelation just means to reveal. Apocalypse means revelation. So to be revealed of something is just the present time to which you're able to grasp it. Ever since you've been born, the Bible been sitting there in that hotel room. You just haven't chose to read it. And even if you did read it, you read it at the surface level, and you could never understand a tree from the fruit. You got to get to the roots. It is saying that we need to transform ourselves and not wait for the world to be transformed. The theme of movement, rest, is not just a metaphor for life in this world. We are points of perception in an absolute reality of universal mind. We become symbiotes of a physical body at its birth for a life of movement and action. We return to a life of rest at its body's death, and in which we contemplate our actions while in movement and the right intentions and goals of action. We are already in the life of birth and death, in resurrection, but do not understand. Birth and death do not exist for our souls, only for our temporary bodies, which leaves only resurrection. We don't know birth, we don't know death as a spiritual being. However, if all you concerned with is birth and death, which is just the ego, which is just the carnal mind, resurrection of who you are as a soul, it don't matter. You already are what it is you are seeking. What do you want right now? What do you want right now? You already are that. This is what this day is about. Can you let go of what you want and see it within yourself, that whatever it is that you want, you're going to be the one that accomplish it. But even to the deeper aspect, why you want it so much, and you don't even want you so much. Your true nature, see, what you waiting for is your true nature to be projected in your reality. But if you're trying to see that through the external, you'll never find it. Now, wherever you're at, wherever you've been at, wherever you might go, your true nature is something to be recognized. On this good Easter Sunday, this is a hard teaching. Who can accept it? Now, in the Bible, John and Luke and Matthew deal extensively with the resurrection. You could go so far as to say that the whole religion, whether it's Judaism or Christianity, is built upon the Passover and upon the resurrection. But both holidays fall on the spring equinox. So are they two different religions or two different rituals? Or they're the same ritual with two different names? This is a hard teaching. Who can accept it? Are we going to bear witness to the spring equinox? Now, in this article, we're dealing with biblical texts, and we're just understanding and overstanding the metaphysics of the biblical text to understand and understand the meaning of Easter Sunday. So rather than being a lot of information or a long video, just look at it as something that you would need to understand and understand. Now, it's Easter Sunday, and y'all gonna do the Easter egg hunt with your kids, but bunnies don't lay eggs. You ever thought about that? However, that tradition of picking up eggs from the grass during the spring equinox is actually a foraging tradition. Whether we're talking about the summer solstice, the spring equinox, the vernal equinox, the winter solstice, these represent times that mushrooms would sprout. And the thing about mushrooms, they can sprout one day and be gone the next. So understand, when you tell your kids to pick up the Easter eggs, they're recreating picking up little psychedelic mushrooms and foraging them and putting them in a basket to be dried, which represents death, and then to be taken in or eaten, which represents resurrection. Now, even the understanding of Passover, it starts in the book of Exodus. Now, in the book of Exodus, it's about Moses, and Moses is freeing the Israelites from Egypt. But it's not like Moses just wakes up one day and says, I'm going to free the Israelites from Egypt, because Moses was actually a pharaoh or a brother of the pharaoh, meaning he had it good. So it was going to take a religious experience for him to even get to a point to even want to help the Israelites, because he didn't have to. Now, God appeared to Moses in a burning bush. Once again, I don't think that it was a lie when Moses seen the burning bush. When I was growing up, I thought this story was full of bullshit. It was a metaphor for something. Now I think it was completely literal. I think Moses was high as shit when he saw that burning bush. One in the chat. I think he was off that good ooh-wee, right? He was burning that bush, and God spoke to him. He got a download. Because what would make a nigga have a nigga ever came from Beverly Hills to the ghetto and said, I'm gonna free all the niggas out the ghetto? Think about how ill that shit is. One's in the chat. Think about a nigga so raw. It's a whole project, 5,000 niggas. And this nigga say, I'm gonna free y'all from this vicious SMHA building. Right? We all going to the land of milk and honey. And he take you out, he take 5,000 niggas out the projects. Think how ill this shit is. And he goes straight to the woods. And he stay in the woods for 40 years. Nobody would put up with that shit unless they was high. One's in the chat. How you gonna stay in the wilderness for 40 years? You would stay in the wilderness for 2 days unless you was high. Now, don't take my word for it. Moses and the Israelites were on drugs. Don't take my word for it. Benny Shannon, an Israeli professor of cognitive philosophy, said that shit. One's in the chat. One's in the chat. If I ain't make it up, this is my understanding. But then I read it, I say, oh, that might make a little more sense. But we're talking about Passover. And we're talking about the roots of Passover. With the roots of Passover is Moses God speaking to him from a burning bush, telling him that he's supposed to free his people. That just don't happen overnight. And then that's some ill ass shit. And see, and this is a point. This is a point right here. I'm saying drugs almost to kind of be facetious. I know it is food. I know it is food. I don't think of it as drugs. So way to correct it, right? Just want to put that out there. Now, there's also a key into this thing, man. During Passover, the Jews are to sacrifice a lamb and put the lamb's blood over the front door so God can show his mercy on that family, on that household. Now, when you read the New Testament, that sacrificial lamb and that blood is now Jesus. Hold on now. We got to think about this. How is the lamb an actual lamb, but that then lamb is Jesus? Now, one of two things. We talking about killing a man, killing the animal, because we going to eat the animal the same way we going to eat the man. Or the lamb is a symbol and Jesus is a symbol, because 10 times out of 10, I might eat the lamb, but I'm for sure not going to eat the man. But I'm eating both of them. Thus, we're not talking about an actual lamb the same way we're not talking about an actual man. Meaning that we're not talking about actual blood and actual flesh that we're consuming as an offering. We're talking about a sacrificial lamb. A sacrificial lamb, once again, we're talking about the Bible, and the Bible is going to use codes to represent ethogenic plants. Imantet or Amenti could be just flipped to Amanita. Amanita muscaria is an entheogen that has been used by indigenous cultures as a sacrifice. When you eat something, because think about this. This fruit is coming from the mycorrhizal network. It's got all of the codes of the mycorrhizal network in the fruit. People gonna eat the fruit and get downloads. Because I gotta pick it up out of the ground, it's gonna leave a hole that rabbits did use to make a home or a nest. That's why going down the rabbit hole is related to psychedelic trips. Now, the sacrificial lamb is just another symbol. All of these are symbologies. And of course, cognitive dissonance will say, no, it's something else. It can't just be mushrooms. But the Bible is going to tell you without a shadow of a doubt, even if it was just mushrooms, we're not talking about just the flesh. We're talking about the spirit that it possessed. Meaning that you could take 1,000,000 mushrooms. If you're not going to do the inner work, it's not going to matter. You could take 1,000,000 mushrooms. If you wounded and the nigga that's wounding you is still around you, it's not going to matter. If you wounded and the woman that's around you that's wounding you, you taking mushrooms, but you're not actually cleaning the house. You're not actually able to perceive God because you got this person in your life that you perceive more than God. You have to reprioritize your shit first. Because as much as you know what to do, you might not do it because it's going to piss your man off. Because it's going to piss your girl off. One's in the chat. So once again, the symbols of sacrifice. So Adam and Eve, when they ate the fruit of the tree of knowledge, that was the first sacrifice. So the Garden of Eden is not original to the Bible. The Garden of Eden is actually a Sumerian and Babylonian myth in reference to Tammuz. So it then been perpetuated in the Bible, but they're still going to eat the fruit from the tree of the knowledge, because one thing they can't lie about is the truth. The truth is the truth. So when you eat from the fruit of the tree of knowledge, it's not a metaphor. It's actually the beginning of the book and the end of the book. Throughout the whole book, it's talking about eating. Eating what? Not shit from the grocery store. Got to be clear on this. Adam and Eve was eating something. If they didn't eat the shit, they would have still been in the Garden of Eden. It took them to eat to then think on the level of what? Gods. Which is an issue within itself. This is why the Old Testament needs the New Testament, because Adam and Eve had direct presence with God through the consumption of the fruit from the tree of good and evil. But it wasn't going to be their salvation. They still needed a mediator or intercessor, and that's where Christ consciousness came. The understanding and the overstanding in the presence of that said mediator within yourself. Now, Adam and Eve thought that they could return to his presence because of the sacrifice of Jesus. They were taught by an angel. The first thing is similitude of the sacrifice of only begotten of the Father, which is full of grace and truth. This is so confusing until you understand that it's consciousness. When your consciousness is full of grace and truth, that's going to be a much different thing than having a mind that's filled with lies and inconsistencies. Thus, when we talk about sacrifice, you're going to have to sacrifice that ignorance. Right? So, just let's go to Revelation. Whoever has ears, let them hear what the Spirit says to the churches. To the one who is victorious, I will give some of the hidden manna. The hidden manna. What is it? Let's look what manna is. Why don't we do that? Because it's two words, the hidden manna. What is manna for real? According to the Bible, manna is an edible substance which God provided for the Jews during their travels in the desert during a 40-year period following the Exodus and their prior to the conquest of Canaan. An edible substance which God provided. That means that they didn't plant any seeds. They didn't do any agriculture. They didn't do any farming. God provided them an edible substance. What is this edible substance? You can figure it out. But we all know what that edible substance is. You can replace it with whatever you think that edible substance is. But there is only one answer for it. There's only one thing that makes sense. When then you try to replace it with other things, it don't make sense. God provides mushrooms. Nobody plants seeds for mushrooms. They send out spores and they grow autonomously. And when you ingest them, and we're talking about all different kinds of mushrooms, all different types of fungi that God provides for society or civilization at a present time. And another thing in reference to, well, hopefully you just take my word that they call Jesus the Lamb of God, right? Jesus' sacrifice. But at the same time, Christians eat Jesus every communion. When he say, this is my body, this is my blood, take it and eat it. They're being literal with that. So you're going to be either eating a man or you're going to be eating something else. I would say you're eating the same fruit that Adam and Eve are eating, because we're talking about religion, and religion is not multifaceted. A door is not multifaceted. A window is not multifaceted. A house is not multifaceted. You generally know when you're in a house, you're in a house. One in the chat if you know when you're in a house. You don't get into a house like, I don't know if this is a house. Is this a car? I don't know if this is a house. Is this a plane? You know when you're in a house. So you mean to tell me that when we talk about God, you get to gain one's own definition? We can't clearly identify how to access God? Okay. It's a lot of people that's going to church, eating wafers, eating grape juice, and saying that they're intaking Jesus' body and Jesus' blood. And the pastor is saying, you just got to use your imagination. And that's what they serve, and that's what they're cool with. I'm personally not cool with that. In chapter 6 of the book of John, Jesus basically tell people, eat me. Are you going to eat a person? Remember when we looked up manna? And we said, what is manna? Manna is an edible substance which God provided for the Jews. In the New Testament, it's tell you clear as day, Jesus said, I am the living bread that came down from heaven. Jesus says, I am the manna. So manna and Jesus are the same thing. Of course, Jesus and manna are the same thing because you're going to eat Jesus. Are y'all following me? One's in the chat. Two, if I'm just sounding crazy as hell, and I'm okay with sounding crazy as hell. But what are we eating here? Are we eating Wonder Bread, rye bread, sourdough bread? What type of bread are we eating? Or are we eating a fucking blonde-haired, blue-eyed white boy in the desert? What are we eating? Jesus said, I am the living bread that came down from heaven. Whoever eats this bread will live forever. And the bread that I will, if it is something else, what else is it? What is the symbolism that is being put in front of us when Jesus says, I am the living bread that came down from heaven? I say it's pretty literal. Jesus is saying that I am the manna. Now, what type of bread comes raining down from heaven? Wonder bread, sourdough, rye bread. Because the last time I checked, you needed yeast to make bread. Once you need a process to make bread. That would then say that humans create that bread, and that bread didn't come down from heaven. So let's read this comment because I feel like it's important. I'm trying to get my head around the idea of manna being mushrooms. It makes sense completely to my spirit, but my rational mind won't accept it fully. That's pretty much the gist of it. That's pretty much how it works, actually. And I wouldn't argue the point. And I'm not trying to convince anybody. I'm just saying, what is this talking about? And instead of saying, what is it talking about, and leaving the question open-ended, I'm saying what I think it is. What makes sense to me. And this is not my first video on the subject, meaning that I studied this shit extensively as much as I can. And I'm just looking for something else that this shit represents. And I'm open to any suggestion. I am the living bread that came down from heaven. Raisin bread, maybe? What type of bread are we talking about? Whoever eats of this bread will live forever. So once again, this bread comes raining down from the sky. If you're able to eat it, you'll live forever. But there's also different caveats to it, and the caveats make perfect sense. Because once again, if I'm telling you this, and then I say mushrooms are the thing, you're going to say, bet, let me eat some mushrooms. Hood, I ate the mushrooms, nothing happened. Mushrooms ain't shit. Once again, caveat, and the bread that I will give for the life of the world is my flesh. Right? That's not the end all be all to the conversation, though. The book is rather dense and it's talking about a lot of different things. Just lay this out here. If you want any of these links, the links will be in the article and you can read over these links. But I'm just laying this out here. Jesus is the manna. Jesus is the bread that came down from heaven. What kind of bread is it? Sourdough, rye, Wonder, Italian, Italian loaf, Italian slice. Is it made from scratch? What type of bread is it? Is it Jewish bread, Russian bread? What kind of bread is it? Is it a pastry? Is it a croissant? Maybe croissant. Croissant's good as a motherfucker, man. That could be the manna. I'm open to any suggestions, right? So we got that. So here we go. For the Lamb, which is in the midst of the throne, shall feed them, and shall lead them unto living fountains of water, and God shall wipe away all the tears from their eyes. Revelation 7:17. Once again, this sacrificial lamb, we're eating it. Once again, we know that we're not actually eating the lamb. That lamb is a symbol, because you would then say they're talking about an actual lamb that we got to eat, right? But no, we're talking about the lamb in the midst of the throne. Now, you get access to it through the flesh. But that's not the end all be all, because we got to do inner work and shadow work. And the way that I know that this have manifested for me, because I was doing all of the spiritual work way before I even gave a fuck about mushrooms. I did probably about 5 or 6 good, strong years about spirituality before I even touched mushrooms. But that was my initiation, right? Because Christ consciousness is the overall goal. There is no shortcuts to the overall goal. You need to get to Christ consciousness, the midst of the throne, which is talking about the soul. Now, when you get to the internal, that's going to feed you. That's going to lead you, i.e., your soul. The Lamb of God is the Son of the Eternal Father and the Savior of the world. All men must come unto him, or they cannot be saved. Once again, is it symbolic, literal, figurative? I say it's literal, right? And it's two things. You have to eat the flesh, and you have to understand the consciousness. But the flesh is not going to save you. The consciousness is going to save you. i.e., your roots, i.e., your inner work. How real can you get with your inner work? Like, how honest can you be without your inner work, without projecting, without, like, what are you here for? How can you contribute? How can you show up? How can you listen to God? Have you burnt any herbs? Have you meditated? Have you centered yourself? Spiritual being having a human experience. Chapter 2, one of the most important chapters ever written in spiritual development. Centering. 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 Lower consciousness represents random thoughts, hell. Higher consciousness is intuition, heaven. And heaven is the spiritual world. Every day is another day towards spiritual enlightenment. Trusting your intuition and listening to its guidance, you can never go wrong. However, the distractions and obligations of the material world can sometimes impede this inner knowledge. Therefore, it is natural to feel fear and hesitation when venturing into the unknown. Still, you can deepen your understanding and connection with the spiritual realm by facing and overcoming these fears. By learning more about the spiritual world and letting go of fear, you can approach the unknown. When we talk about centering, we're talking about reconnecting to your center. We're talking about reconnecting to the mist of the throne. And this is what resurrection is about. Resurrection isn't about Jesus or a man being resurrected in the past. It's about the spring equinox. It's about the first full moon. It's about Easter. It's about the rising and the new beginning and the new energy. When we look at the full moon, that full moon is the egg, which then has a relationship with the earth that creates or sprouts agriculture, plants, roses, herbs, all different types of things are created in the spring. In Sumerian and Babylonian work, the moon was connected to the cattle. The thing about cattle is that the methane in their stomach and their digestion made it fertile. They used cow manure as the thing to grow gardens and things of that nature. Another thing that grows from cow manure is mushrooms. And when you are able to tap into different levels of prosperity, agriculture, farming, psychedelics, you made a lot of prosperity. You created a lot of prosperity for yourself. So it's one of two things that's happening. The thing about people who are into psychedelics and mental health, they're generally not broke people. They generally have a lot going for themselves, meaning that they've done the work on many different levels. And they still recognize that they need to heal on certain levels. Even for me, I noticed that the fruit within itself connects me to other people. And when I have those connections, crazy things happen to me all the time with this. Like I couldn't even tell you just imagine your car breaking down, you catching an Uber, and the person you catch an Uber with turns out being your new best friend. And you didn't have to, your car didn't have to break down, and you didn't have to call. And even crazy, I didn't call an Uber, I called a Lyft. I usually call Uber, but something said, let me call a Lyft. And I met somebody that's really helpful in this present moment. So it's a lot of things that takes place when you deal with the roots. The roots have probably 90% to do with how you show up. And the 10% is you taking a bath. And you know that this is powerful because Easter, Passover, Resurrection Sunday, it falls on different dates. It's a revolving holiday. Christmas is always the 25th, right? November, always on a Thursday. Thanksgiving rather. But Easter is completely relative to the full moon. So the ancients followed the full moon, but we advanced. We got Facebook and phones and technology. We don't need to follow the full moon. But every year we get dressed up, we eat. That's a ritual. That means something. Meaning to say, if you so spiritual that you're not going to observe this day in no type of way, Christians got you beat by a fucking mile, my guy. Christians way more spiritual than you just by the mere fact of going to Golden Corral in a new shirt. Have a good time at church. You ain't going to do nothing. You ain't going to ritualize this day at all. You deep. Oh, it don't resonate with you. I got it. Oh, deep ass nigga. One's in the chat. Hey, stay away from them deep niggas, man. A deep nigga is nothing but a thug, but with an unk. With some key buzzwords. A deep nigga is gonna fuck you the same way as a street nigga. The only difference is a street nigga gonna give you $100. A deep nigga don't got $100 to give you because he too deep to work. One's in the chat. He is not working under the white man in the white man system. He gonna meditate. He gonna eat grass, right? He gonna drive your car to and from the Botanica. Gonna give you some of that spiritual dick, i.e. that demon dick, but that's a whole nother video, isn't it? Isn't it? Whole nother video. Many ancient religions and traditions recognize the spring equinox and the resurrection of plants that have seemingly died during the winter. So what did you not think that was going to happen is now beginning to happen. And I want you to be so serious about this day and this ritual. I want you to be so excited about what spirit can offer you in life. You might be the type of person to say, I just need $1,000, and spirit want to give you $10,000 or $100,000. Spirit asked me, well, why you don't want $1 million? Why you want this? I was just saying I just had this small financial goal. And spirit said, man, why you want that small ass shit? What's wrong with you? Why you even want that? You should want much more for yourself. So where you think you egotistical and you want to do it your way, it's probably the limited version of yourself. It's probably the free version. Spirit got the pro and premium packages available for your ass if you really want to get into it. Once again, is it what you want or is it what God wants? Are you tuned in and tapped into what God wants, your soul wants for you, your higher self? Or are you tuned in and tapped into what you want? What you want is the free version of life, nigga. Commercials after every song. Motherfuckers get used to it. Was in the chat if you got fucking Spotify free version. You gotta stop with you can't have Spotify free. It makes no sense. It's just a waste of an app. You might as well just delete the app and listen to music on YouTube or something. What's the point of having Spotify if you're not going to pay the $6 for it? No commercials, listen to the full CD. You listen to random songs for what? A new CD come out, you listen to what Spotify wants you to listen to. How that work? Can't do it. Can't do it. You better listen to that full CD. That don't even make sense. It don't even make sense. You in your poverty era if you got the free Spotify. That's your poverty era. Now you in your rich girl, rich boy era because you got the pro version of goddamn Spotify. The pro version of life is incorporating your spirituality and tuning in and tapping into the rituals and also incorporating space and time, i.e. solstices and equinoxes. So once again, Inanna, Amenti, Amanetti, talking about mushrooms. Let's deal with it. Happy New Year's, niggas. Forgot to tell y'all. One is in the chat. Happy New Year's. Say Happy New Year's to everybody in the chat, man. Happy New Year's, niggas. Hey, where's the motherfucking ball dropping? Why we ain't in Times Square like, hey, Happy New Year's? What we doing? Saying here is sad. Out of alignment. Happy New Year's, niggas. The Babylonian... That's funny to me. I need a t-shirt that say that. Happy New Year's, niggas. The Babylonian calendar began with the first new moon after the March equinox, the day of the return of the Sumerian goddess Inanna, later known as Ishtar, from the underworld. Let's just bear witness. We gotta do some goddamn grammar. Amenti, Imentet, Imentet, right? Basically, a goddess of the underworld. Check, right? Got the mushroom cap and the eagle wings, right? Representing the traveling through the underworld, which we all need to become whole, right? i.e. shadow work. But then we also have another word related to that word, Amanita. Just type in Amanita on your computer, and the first thing that's going to come up is Amanita muscaria, which is connected to the underground or the mycological or mycorrhizal networks. So what does that look like? It looks exactly like this. This is where the action is at. Like being grounded, being rooted, going out into nature, walking bare feet is all connecting you to the mycological network, right? Psychedelic plants, herbs, medicines, teas, things of that nature. That's the mycological network, mycorrhizal network, okay? This is what it talks about descending into the underworld. And the reason that I'm so pumped up about it, honestly, is that like a couple of days ago, I was in the underworld. And the thing about being in the underworld is that you can't do nothing. So I had all of these ideas that I couldn't act on, all of these things that I wanted to do, and I couldn't do it. And it bothered me. But the next day, I got up and I did a lot of shit that I've been wanting to do for a long time. And it always has me thinking like, damn, why couldn't I just did this shit? Why is it so easy to do it? And it's just because the connections, you know, like being in a toxic relationship, being in toxic situations, they really damage your synapses. They really make you feel bad, right? Because you might don't know what to do. Especially when it comes to family, friends, and loved ones. You could be in toxic, fucked up situations. And the reality that I've learned this year, these previous years, is that I can only take care of me. Because if the spirit is not in you, all of the knowledge, all of the entheogens, all of the herbs, all of the verbiage is never going to fucking matter. The spirit has to be cultivated. And I can't do that work for nobody. Especially if I can barely do it for myself. And that's what this message of this actual, I would say full moon, but Easter energy is about. So let's look at Revelation 2:17. Once again, Whoever has ears, let them hear what the Spirit says to the churches, what the Spirit says to the chakras, meaning that even in the story of Inanna, if you do the knowledge, she goes through 7 levels in the underworld. She activates her 7 chakras. Niggas say chakras don't resonate with me. Right? I don't understand chakras. Hood, I know you got a book called Chakra Nova. It don't resonate with me. I don't want to read it. Since I don't read it and I don't understand or understand my chakras, I don't have to. Hood, I know you got courses on chakras on Columbian Exchange. I know they ain't expensive, but it don't resonate with me. So I don't need it. But when the Spirit talks to the churches, when the Spirit talks to the chakras, you don't have no idea. Like, it's so many things that's happening right now with your body that you can tune in and tap into. Your body is so fucking intelligent in what it's actually trying to say to you in this moment. The reality of people that I know that are tuned in and tapped in, they can pick up on those codes very easy. People who don't have any spirit or any understanding, they don't even realize when their body is talking to them and what their body is saying. However, I know that through my teachings and through the things that I have to say, through application, through understanding your chakras, it's going to be much easier for Spirit to talk to the churches and for you to understand. So once again, in these days and times, we're going to be talking to the ones who are victorious and not the fucking losers. So if you are victorious, you can have some of the hidden manna. And I will give a person a white stone with a new name written on it. This is resurrection. If you don't understand your soul name and who you are as a spiritual being, and all you know yourself as is Shaniqua Johnson, Lisa Thompson, Reginald Daniel, Philip Hudson, all of these names are old names. You need a new name. This is resurrection, but the resurrection comes by way of the hidden manna, because the manna is the flesh, the bread, whatever, sourdough, red, rye, raisin, but the Spirit is hidden. That's why the Spirit says to the churches, speaks to the chakras. Now, I've written Chakra Nova without knowing any of this hot shit. Right? And that's the way I feel like it should have been, because I understood all of Revelation to a certain point. Now, when I go back to Revelation and understand what the hidden manna is, and not in symbolism or figurative, I know what it literally is. It is the Spirit in the flesh, that which creates a resurrection. I know that I'm a different person. And I know that I've been becoming a different person over time. And the reality with resurrection, the people that liked your old name is not going to like your new name. But you got to make a choice. Do I want to be my old name or do I want to be my new name? I get a 1 in the chat if that makes sense to y'all, or y'all understand. Because a lot of y'all is perfectly fine with being y'all old name. To whereas resurrection don't resonate with you. It ain't something that you want to hear. It ain't something that you need to hear. But sooner or later, you going to want to know why ain't nothing making sense. Because we talking about right now, and we talking about something that is very specific. What is Christ consciousness? What does Christ consciousness mean before we go any further? Because I swear, y'all, when every time I say Jesus, y'all swear I'm talking about a blonde hair, blue-eyed man in the desert, and I promise y'all I'm not. I promise y'all I'm not. I promise y'all I'm talking about Christ consciousness. What is Christ consciousness? Christ consciousness is the awareness of the higher self as part of a universal system. The awareness of the higher self. So Christ consciousness is your personal awareness to your higher self. And the deeper revelation that your higher self is a part of the all. There is no ego in this. There is no my music hit me so hard. There is no MC Hammer when it comes to this. Because the thing about MC Hammer, he was once the richest rappers in the world. Then he filed bankruptcy. Puff Daddy had more money than anybody. He had two Rolexes. Talk about more money, more problems. Can't nobody hold me down. Now you America's Most Wanted. So it's a clear seed of demonic energy in all people, and it's very subtle. You know, the most demonic people are the people that would consider themselves as good. The most demonic people don't even understand themselves to be demonic because they have no awareness of themselves and their higher self. They don't even view them higher selves as a point of truth. Think about that shit. It's all well and good if we're talking about the higher self as a concept, but can you bear witness to your higher self? Can you be your higher self? Can you stop pointing the fingers at people? Can you stop wishing and wanting for niggas with other motherfuckers a life that another motherfucker's living low key? Not even knowing what kind of life that motherfucker actually living. Because as soon as you hear about the rituals that Puff Daddy was doing, now y'all want to vilify him or crucify him. But at one level, you're like, Puff Daddy, the man, he got the money. He the GOAT. What did it take for him to get to be the GOAT? Sex trafficking, drug muling, working for motherfucking the powers that be. I told you he was under ritual by Clive Davis. What do I mean by he under ritual? Anybody is under ritual, sooner or later, you see them in jail, and they don't know how the fuck they got in jail. There's millions of people in jail doing bad time, and if you ask them, well, how'd you get here? Man, I don't know. It just happened in a quick second. It was just boom, my life changed. I don't even know. Now I'm sitting here for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. If we got into the reality of the opposite of Christ consciousness, now we're talking about a world of possessed people that only know it when it's too late. You on your deathbed and the spirit done left you and went to another motherfucker. You thought that you was doing the thing that you were supposed to do, the good thing, but you wasn't aware of your higher self. So most people bear witness to demonic energy. Motherfuckers will know a Gucci Mane song more than they know, a meditation chant. Because when you talk about music, demons are just energies that utilize creative energy for their own personal gain, to which creative energy actually has a healing modality. It have a healing modality because it also have a harming modality. It's niggas that's like, doing a drill to rap music, killing somebody, listening to a rap song. That's a demonic energy because it's using creative energy to manipulate people for personal gain. So Christ consciousness would never do a drill song. But a carnal mind would do a drill song in a second. It won't even think twice. It ain't even real. I'm not actually killing nobody. Millions of drill rappers. Although it can be interpreted in a number of ways, a common understanding is that Christ consciousness is the state of consciousness in which a person has found self-realization and unity with God or the divine. Guess what, y'all? This is a personal job. You're not going to find it in a community. You're not going to find it in a relationship. It is the bare witnessing of your higher self and the bare witnessing of your soul, the bare witnessing of your responsibility and accountability for this life path of what you have. You don't need to be sad. You don't need to be depressed. You don't need to be lack. You don't need to be in debt. You don't need to be none of this, because none of this have anything to do with your soul. The reason you think you in debt, the reason that you think you in lack is because you haven't bear witness to your higher self. You've never been resurrected because it doesn't resonate with you. right? It's cognitive dissonance. This is new information. Thus, it doesn't matter because you learned everything you needed to learn in the 12 years of high school. And then you did 2 years at the community college, so you stopped learning. But the difference between a spiritually developed person and a person that haven't spiritually developed is the difference between a child and an adult. Certain things you can't grasp and resonate with because you haven't developed the consciousness to even understand that you are Christ consciousness. You have a state of mind within you that is deeply connected to your higher self, deeply connected to your soul. So any feelings of depression or sadness is not in relation to who you actually are. And you can feel these things, but understand it's part of your carnality. Once you find self-realization, once you find unity with God, that's the end all be all to this shit. Guess what, nigga? You don't happen to that until you fucking die. So as long as you living, it's a gap between you and your higher self. The only thing you can do is be aware of your higher self. The only thing you can do is be aware of God. And you must listen intently to even figure out what God wants you to do. Because you can then decide to do whatever the fuck you want to do. But guess what? It won't be pleasing to nobody. Even deeper, it won't even be. Imagine you being depressed and having all of the option to do whatever the fuck you wanted to do, but you did the thing that led to your depression. And then you're trying to figure out what to do. The solution would be to follow God within yourself, i.e. self-realization, unity with God. It may also be used as a synonym for the Hindu concept of samadhi, or deep spiritual bliss. Once again, to have a self-realization, to have unity with God and divine is a feeling. So you then can't come to your husband and say, "Oh, honey, I'm sad. Can you do something to make me happy?" You know she be pissing me off. You know I hate that job. You know I can't stand living in that city. You know. No, I don't know. We talking about becoming. We're not talking about accomplishing. We're talking about becoming in this moment. That is the work. The work is inner. The work is dealing with the roots. The work is resurrection. Resurrection is the resurrection of Jesus, which we all can bear witness to. But if we don't know what Jesus is, we conscious, so we'll watch the memes. Jesus ain't real. We'll share that on our story. Jesus ain't real. We'll feel good about Jesus not being real, but nobody said he was real. We're talking about Christ consciousness. Consciousness is very real. Consciousness is probably the realest shit in the world. You either have it or you don't. Although Christ consciousness is not intended to relate solely to the personality of Jesus Christ, it is a combination of Christian language with Eastern religious and philosophical concepts that make it a controversial term to some. It was named after the spiritual elevation Jesus achieved during his mortal life and is symbolic of the enlightenment attained by the spiritual masters after a period of suffering. Which that period of suffering for most people is just called the winter, right? The winter is a period of suffering that begets the energy of spring, which Jesus is resurrected and arose from the grave. The grave is just simply the underworld where human beings go to die. Before there was tombs, before there was caskets, it was just the dirt. So the underworld or a grave or a tomb is just the dirt. So when Jesus arose on the third day, that could mean one of two things. He sprouted from the ground or it was dried for 3 days and then you could ingest it, right? Before Jesus died, they had the Last Supper. And what you do at a supper, you eat. What was they eating? Jesus said, take my body and eat it. Here go my blood, drink it. What is they talking about? Just a question. We're talking about self-realization. And a lot of this stuff, it would be like, man, I personally wish it was something else that I could say to come to this conclusion because I've been on this platform for a long time saying different things. But I've come to this conclusion based upon not by my own recognizance, basically, is what I'm trying to say. It's just that the research and the understanding lines up. So once again, what is the carnal mind? So we can be clear on this in reference to a carnal mindset or a carnal consciousness and a spiritual concept, or rather a Christ-like or a Christ consciousness mindset. Very simply, in Romans 8, chapter 8, verse 6 through 8, it says, "For to be carnally minded is death, but to be spiritually minded is life and peace." So within the Bible, it's telling you that Christ consciousness is a real thing, right? To be spiritually minded is just simply Christ consciousness, because that life of peace is how you feel consciously. Now, what does the carnal mind do? It puts you against God by its very default. So therefore, to be against God is what is being said as far as samadhi, deep spiritual bliss. What is deep spiritual bliss? The antithesis of deep spiritual bliss: depression, sadness, anxiety, fear. To know that you and God, you and your soul, you and your higher self have an intimate relationship, that is the only protection spell you need. Imagine having samadhi and doing a protection spell. Imagine having samadhi and doing a money spell. Imagine doing samadhi and doing a binding spell to somebody that don't want to be bound to you. So in the spiritual community, that don't mean that you have deep spiritual bliss. I would go so far as to say you got a lot of people who experiencing the antithesis of deep spiritual bliss, but you either projecting your God force energy on them and you think they're more than what they actually are, or they just downright suffering and you don't even fucking know. Because at the end of samadhi, it's kiss my ass energy. At the end of the day, you might not like me, you might hate me, you may not understand me, you might think I'm full of shit, and these are your own personal beliefs. I'm not even talking about anything in reference to whether you should or shouldn't like me. I'm just actually presenting information that you can actually do your own research and come to your own conclusion on. But in this world, I know that it's a lot of space in between what is true and what is false. So in that, I will give you an answer to what is true, just so you don't have to do the research, but you can if you want to. And if you so happen to come up with something alternative to my theory, I'm on StreamYard right now. We can debate. I love a good debate. I do too much research not to debate a nigga. You understand? If this means something else, tell me it's different. With some research though, I'm willing to listen. That's what I'm doing to even get these downloads that I'm listening. So, resurrection, the death of Jesus, is the establishing of Christ consciousness. To establish Christ consciousness, we must kill Jesus. Because Jesus within itself will naturally resurrect itself in essence and spirit. So let's be clear about this. I had a link, but then something happened to where the link didn't show up. So going further, I got to figure out what link that was and edit the actual page. But let's go further into Corinthians, 2 Corinthians chapter 3. 1 second. Let's start from here, the beginning. Give us context. Are we beginning to commend ourselves again? Right? This is just the carnal mind trying to accomplish something, trying to be something, trying to manifest something. That's how we commend ourselves. We can all do it, right? That's why I'm consistent on the spiritual conversation, because I can get into this energy of commending myself quicker than anybody. I know that about myself, but I have to remind myself to follow God, to trust God. I have to remind myself. One of the biggest ways that I remind myself to trust God and follow God is by doing a video, by speaking truth to myself. Because I can't go on live and even expect one viewer. So at a certain point, I gotta be honest with myself, because I can't even imagine like having a bunch of people watching these videos or depending on a bunch of people watching these videos, because I might want to commend myself. I might want to start lying just to keep people around, right? The more people around, the more you gotta lie, because each person have a personality. And each different personality have a cognitive bias that you got to adhere to. So you got to be extremely general with people. Right now, I'm giving it to you blood raw straight. That's not going to attract a lot of people, because most people want the motherfucking medicine to be sweet. But one's in the chat, if medicine is bitter, medicine is hard to digest a lot of times. But medicine is the thing that's going to help you, and sweet is going to give you diabetes. So information that feel good and sound good is not going to progress your mind. It's not going to get you closer to source. Are we beginning to commend ourselves again? You might want to ask yourself. Or do we need, as some letters do, of recommendation to you or from you? You are our letter, written on our hearts, known and read by all. This goes back to our Asmodeus build, where you don't know what people in heaven are talking about. You don't know what people in hell are talking about when it comes to you. You are their prized possession. So it's going to be demons after you. It's going to be angels after you, because you don't know how powerful you are. You are our letter, written on our hearts, known and read by all. That depression energy, that I ain't shit energy, you got to kill that on Resurrection Sunday. The same way a rose blooms, the same way as trees sprout. This motherfucker came and ripped the goddamn leaf up out the tree and ripped up the leaf and stomped on it and set it on fire and threw it in water and dug a ditch in it. And the tree ain't did nothing but sprout a new motherfucking leaf. Y'all be worried about what's going to happen to the leaf and what's going to be happening to you in your life. But that shit is a leaf getting pulled out from a tree. That tree don't give a fuck about that leaf. And whatever you give a fuck about, it can be recovered. It can be resurrected. You are our letter, written on our hearts, known and read by all. This is a message to all spiritual beings. Motherfuckers will be looking at a tarot card trying to figure out if a nigga liked them or not. When you are like, come on, man, let's be honest about this shit. Will I or will I not be rich? When you are written on the hearts and known and read by all. Shown to be a letter of Christ. Now, once again, Christ consciousness administered by us, written not in ink, but by the Spirit of the living God. Not on tablets of stone, but on the tablets that are the hearts of flesh. Once again, flesh is not talking about your skin and your body, because that would be a little weird. It is written on the hearts of the flesh of the mushroom, and the spirit of the living God is inherent within the mushroom, and in a deeper aspect is related to the serotonin. If you got a Lamborghini, but you didn't do any serotonin work, eventually, however you felt before that Lamborghini will come to creep up on you. But if you did serotonin work and you got a Ford Taurus, you have been grateful for that Ford Taurus, but you was doing the serotonin work and you got another car or whatever car you had, you was just grateful for it because you understood that the car is not relative to my relationship with Christ, nor is my development at the roots any relation to what season I'm in. I could be in winter. I could be in spring. I could be in fall. I could be in summer. You could be in the winter season in your life. That don't mean that your life is over. And if you're old enough, you've probably been in many winters, and you've been in many summers, and you've been in many springs, and you've been in many falls. You understand and overstand it. It's ups and downs. It comes and goes with this shit. But what does this have to do with your relation to God? What does this have to do with your relationship to the roots? Nothing at all. What you have, whatever the tree have leaves on it or not, it's still a tree and it's still progressing at a certain level, mainly underground. So once again, such confidence we have through Christ towards God. Very simple shit. Imagine if your confidence came with your fucking job. One's in the chat. Imagine that shit. Your profession, your status, how many views you got, how much money you made. What if your confidence came from that and they took whatever you had away from you? Where would your confidence go? Please explain this shit to me. Because to me, it makes sense. It makes so much sense to me. I'll be feeling autistic when it comes to this shit, man. Why are we building our confidence on what our girlfriend looks like, how big our house is, some shit that can be taken away from us, but we don't have confidence in reference to our relationship to self? That's where my confidence comes from, actually. To an observer, motherfucker might say, well, what is what and how is how? And I'm going to tell you some real shit. I don't know left from right, up from down. What I do know is that I'm going to center myself. I'm going to meditate and see what God has for me for that day. Because sometimes that's all I got, to be honest. That's all I got is the confidence that I have built through Christ towards God. Keep going. Not that ourselves we are qualified to take credit for anything as coming from us. Rather, our qualification comes from God, who has indeed qualified us as ministers of a new covenant, not of letter, but of spirit. For the letter brings death, but the spirit gives life. This is the story of resurrection. The letter is a Hebrew letter. You should meditate upon Hebrew letters as much as you can, because Hebrew letters are the foundation for creation, even if you don't understand. The letter or the vessel or the external is going to bring death, but that's because it is the spirit that has to be found. Another way of explaining this is if you got everything that you wanted, you would have never did the inner work. That's why it comes from sickness. It comes from wounds. It comes from winters. Winters then lead us into springs, nigga. Spring leads you into summer, leads you into fall, and then leads you back into winter. The key is, can you harvest during fall? Can you plan during summer? Can you understand and understand to actually plan during the spring? Plan for the harvest because it's going to come. Plan for the winter because it's going to come. When you coasting through your winter, you will understand. When you don't have, you will say, well, I kind of knew, because the cycles of life. The people who got it figured out is the people that understand that hard times do come. People who don't have it figured out just hope that hard times never come. And then when they come, they then be surprised and fucked up. But the reality is, what was you supposed to do? Trust and follow what God have to do for you. So what is God telling you to do? Can you do it? This is a hard teaching. Who can accept it? And that's the end of John 6:60. But the beginning of John 6 is Jesus feeding 5,000 once again with bread. And so we're talking about this in a way to really hammer home the concepts and also recognize the correlation between Jesus and bread. Because in this story, Jesus feeds 5,000 with seemingly not enough. Now, the way that mushrooms actually work is through a spore system. And the spores, you can't see it with the naked eye, but scientists have now figured out that spores travel distances, and those spores then create more mushrooms. So it's a self-creating process, right? So when Jesus is walking on the water and they get to the other side and they see Jesus on the water and they looking across the water, like, how did those mushrooms from over there get over here? Basically, that's like the surprise to them. Like, how is that happening? But future scientists could easily explain that, right? But back then they don't have no understanding. And trust me, they're farmers and they're shepherds, meaning that they only know plant a seed, watch it manifest. So anything that sprouts unbeknownst to them is a miracle, right? But in John chapter 6, they get into the science. After he feeds 5,000 people, after he walks on water, the disciples is like, man, how the fuck did you do that? How you do that shit, Jesus? And Jesus says, look, niggas, I'm the bread of life. It is me. It is I. Big bread. Jesus. Well, I'm going down too far. Let's zoom out a little bit. So they're like, man, how'd you do it? When did you get here? And Jesus answered, very true, I tell you, you are looking for me, not because you saw the signs that I performed, because you ate the loaves and had your fill. Right? Do not work for food that spoils, but for food that endures to eternal life. Once again, the flesh, they ate the flesh, had the experience, maybe good or bad. So you're trying to recreate the experience, but the experience is eternal. It's going to be a work that takes place in reference to self-realization and spiritual development. And the spirit of the work is what you're trying, like, to know that you need to do inner work is kind of the goal of Easter. The fact that you need to kill your old self is the work. So the food that spoils, basically, we're talking about mindsets, is the carnal state of mind. But the food that endures is the spiritual state, which he says the Son of Man will give you the food that endures. Once again, they're not being figurative. They're not trying to like mince words here. They're being very literal. The Son of Man is going to give you the food that endures to the eternal life, and it's going to be connected with the food that spoils. For on him, God the Father has placed his seal of approval. Then they asked him, what must we do to do the works God requires? The work of God is this, to believe in the one he has sent. That's going to be a difficult sell. Even in the conversations that people have been commenting in the chat. It makes sense. It makes sense. My spirit understands it. It fills in the blanks a lot for me, but I can't relate the blonde-haired hippie dude with the tie-dye and the holes in his jeans as being the gateway to my salvation. So the work of God is this, to believe in the one he has sent, because I could tell you 1,000,001 different things that could be your salvation. I'm more than likely not even wanting to tell you this shit. I don't even want to connect Jesus to the mushroom. I want to connect Jesus to the white man with blind eye. I want to say it's a man in the desert because that's what I was raised to believe. But the cognitive realization is to say, maybe it is not this. But then I look at my life and I literally see what Jesus has done for me. Then I'm like, damn, I have a testimony. Damn. Fuck. I can't even front. This nigga, this Bible actually the truth. And I'm conscious as fuck. I'm so conscious that I would more or less say that I'm trolling myself right now. That's how conscious I am. I'm Brother Panic, Bobby Hemmett, fuck Christian conscious, nigga. I'm dark side conscious, nigga. Left path conscious, nigga. You would never hear me talking like this. That's how I know this shit is real. I done wrote books on all types of shit. I can't really write a book on this. It's already a book written. The work of God is this, to believe in the one he has sent. That's the work. Not trying to convince you of nothing. I'm just more or less telling you how I personally feel, and that's real. You know, this is just how I personally feel about this. So they asked him, what sign then will you give that we may see it and believe you? What will you do? Our ancestors ate the manna in the wilderness, as it is written, he gave them bread from the heaven to eat. Jesus said to them, very truly, I tell you, it is not Moses who has given you the bread from heaven, but it is my Father who gives you the true bread from heaven. For the bread of God is the bread that comes down from heaven and gives life to the world. Sir, they said, always give us this bread. Then Jesus declared, I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me will never go hungry, and whoever believes in me will never be thirsty. But as I told you, you have seen me, and you still do not believe. Argue with me, debate, change my mind, give me some other research, tell me I'm off. Like, give me the literature and we can discuss it. But as far as I will see, you will bear witness to the truth, but you still won't believe it. And that's okay. Because I'm not trying to convince. I'm trying to educate, and I'm trying to establish deep spiritual bliss to those who want it. Because trust me, deep spiritual bliss is you to do the inner work within yourself and see the ways for which you need to improve, and you begin to do that shit. But you need to see in the ways that you need to actually improve. That means you have to have a personal relationship with God. That's what I hope. I hope that you have a personal relationship with God and you figure out Christ consciousness and you begin to have that deep spiritual bliss. That's what the purpose of my conversation is. It's not even to challenge you or to argue with you. But I understand in the text it is written, right? But as I told you, you have seen me and you still do not believe. I bear witness to that. All those the Father gives me will come to me. Whoever comes to me, I will never drive away. I bear witness to that. For I have come down from heaven, not to do my will, but to do the will of him who sent me. I bear witness to that. And you can differentiate the carnal mind and differentiate the Christ consciousness and also understand the necessity for resurrection. Because if you don't actually bear witness to what God's will is, you're going to be simply following your own will. And that is not hard work. That is not righteous to say, oh, I wanted this so bad and I got it. Lucky me. God love me now because I got a Benz, I got a nice house. But what about the deep spiritual bliss? And a lot of people will forgo deep spiritual bliss just to have inanimate objects. Many people will forgo the knowledge of understanding the root of the tree if only they can get a fucking apple. And people will bear witness, oh, I got an apple, or I got a lemon, or I got a peach, or I got an orange. Well, can you plant the tree? No, I can't do that. I just ate it. Well, what you gonna do now? The fucking peach is gone. Can you continue to eat off that peach? Meaning if you buy a house and you feel good buying that house, at what point does the maintaining and the gradual occupation of that house sustain your hormonal balance? Let me answer that for you. It's not. Eventually, you're going to reduce to your own self, and then you're going to have to deal with your relationship to self. So in the mushroom or in Jesus, it's not about what it can actually do for you. It's more or less about how much you can submit to the will of God. And once again, if you're doing that naturally and in alignment, you don't need mushrooms. This is for those that are broken, that are wounded. And this is the will of him who sent me, and that I shall lose none of all those he has given me, but raise them up at the last day. That's what today is, the last day, right? These are the last days. Once again, and another point that I want to point out to in verse 36, where it says, but as I told you, you have seen me and you still do not believe. Right? Remember when I was talking about resonating? You went and look up the John Hopkins medicine.org and look up their psychedelics research and psilocybin therapy. One's in the chat, right? You still won't believe, right? The John Hopkins Center for Psychedelic and Consciousness Research is leading the way in exploring innovative treatments using psilocybin. The molecular structure of psilocybin, a naturally occurring psychedelic compound found in magic mushrooms, allows it to penetrate the central nervous system, and the scientific and medical experts are just beginning to understand its effects on the brain and mind and its potential as therapeutics for mental illnesses. So even if I showed you this article, you still wouldn't believe. You would think that I'm talking about something else. I'm reading a fucking paragraph that you can bear witness to. The link is in the description. Go to the article and you can hit the hyperlink for medical and scientific studies on mushrooms. But like in verse 35, John chapter 6, you have seen Jesus and you still don't believe. Those scientific studies don't resonate with you. And since they don't resonate with you, you don't have to even bear witness to them. You rather just continue to be depressed and sad. You don't want to have a personal relationship with God, and I get it. But I'm going to press the issue. I'm going to fill in the blanks, and I'm going to be matter of fact. And I feel the uncomfortableness of it because most spiritual people want to speak to you in ambiguities. They want to say, well, if you think it is, it is. And if it doesn't vibrate with you, it doesn't vibrate with you. And the frequency of the coordinates doesn't match up with your alignment. And if it's not an alignment, blah, biggity, blah, blah, blah. Nigga, you got to be direct, because if we wanted to install a doorway, I would need the measurements. Why is it when it comes to consciousness and enlightenment, I have to speak in codes and symbolisms and figuratives? That's for children. The adults can get it, the raw medicine. When you was a kid and your mom gave you some medicine, what she give it to you as? And cherry flavor, didn't she? Strawberry flavor, fruit flavor. Imagine your grown ass going to the doctor like, hey, doc, you know them Xanax, you got a strawberry flavor? I'm just asking. You take it straight. So once again, at the end of the day, y'all wouldn't even know Christ, even if it was on sale for 20% off, 25% off at whiterabbitpsych.com. All orders over 40%. Promo code Eclipse, whiterabbitpsych.com. Got some strains, some new different strains on the menu. Check it out. Do your research. Remember, don't purchase without entering that promo code Eclipse. Save you some money, right? whiterabbitpsych.com. Quick little promo. Shameless plug. Some more knowledge that you can get besides me rambling. The Sacred Mushroom and the Cross by John M. Allegro. Get that book or get it off Everand. Got it on audiobook on Everand. He's breaking down everything in the Bible and related it back to the Babylonian and Sumerian, and then doing the linguistics on that. And it's all relating to sex and mushrooms and fertility, right? That's what the foundation of Judaism and Christianity was. There's a bunch of motherfuckers getting high and having downloads and making love. You feel me? And that, and you look at a Christian church now, same thing happening now. Quiet as kept, right? Some freaky shit going down in church, believe you me, right? So, yeah, man. Don't want to take up too much time that I took already, but like I said, it's a little bit more to this article. Another paragraph, some hyperlinks in relation to depression, ultimately relating psychedelic experiences to religious experience. So do the knowledge, man. Understand that I could just be a nigga talking crazy, but I gave y'all a lot of links. The article is free. The reason I put the article free because I gave a lot of information that you could begin to read and research so you can have your own understanding and overstanding of this day, right? I'm just a regular guy. I would normally say, fuck Easter. I don't celebrate holidays, but I can't say that because I've done the knowledge. And this is a very special day, but very personal. Rejoice in the deletion of your carnal mind and rejoice in the resurrection of your spiritual mind, i.e. Christ consciousness. Hopefully this message was concise. It was clear. It made sense. I get some ones in the chat if that was the case, right? And I'm not actually promoting mushroom usage more than mushroom research. Please do your research, do your information, do your Googles, do your Reddits, your Twitters. Get as much information as you can on the subject before you dive into something that you might not understand or overstand. Because a lot of people do it for the flesh, and that's not going to help you at all. So I want to give that disclaimer. I did years and years of inner work before I even was introduced to mushrooms. And if you have not done inner work, this is not going to be your magic pill to solve all your problems. I would go so far as to say, do the inner work until your soul says it's okay for you to do mushrooms to you. Because, it's a such thing as a bad trip where your shadow and all the things you haven't dealt with hit you hard, and you'll be mad at me. You understand what I'm saying? So I would say do the inner work, start small. Don't try to go for a home run and, talk to a burning bush like Moses or anything like that. But really study and understand microdose, watch videos on the subject, read books if you can, look up articles, take notes, and figure out if it's something for you. And if it is something for you, you know where you can find me, whiterabbitpsych.com. Email me, hitmystic@gmail.com. Peace to the tribe, peace to the collective. Thank y'all for all of y'all support thus far. If it wasn't for the support of y'all, I would not be here. So, I don't say it all of the time, but I'm going to say it now. I appreciate you for watching because it does a lot for me just by watching the video, liking the video, sharing, commenting in the chat. Thank you for all y'all doing. And so I'm going to play some reviews. It's going to be on for like 5 minutes. And in that time, if you have any questions, I'll answer them in the chat. But like I said, thank y'all for watching. Thank you for tuning in and tapping in with me. And if any questions that y'all have, line them up in the chat and I'll answer them to the best of my ability. Peace.
Tell me how you know. I can search high and low. And I can tell you one thing. You can put big titties, but naked women just don't fall like the sky, you know. Tell me how you know. I can search high and low. And I can tell you one thing. You can put big titties, but naked women just don't fall like the sky, you know. Don't fall like the sky, you know. Sky, you know. Don't fall like the sky, you know. They so valuable. I can search high and low. And I can tell you one thing. Beautiful big titties, but naked women just don't fall like the sky, you know. God damn, it must be two sides. 4G's on that double line, floating like a cruise line. Bitches wanna fuck me, they trap me, they fuck me over. She crying tears and then make back and knock the Toyota. Once it's over, then she dead and me.
Did you know that a tree has to grow in two directions at the same time? Did you know that?
A tree has to grow in two
It's
directions.
always growing in two directions at the same time. It's growing down and it's growing up. And what's interesting, if you could see the part of the tree that's under the ground, it looks very similar to the part of the tree that's above the ground. The root system is very similar to the fruit
That's crazy.
system.
I never thought about that.
See what's happening? Look at, right, exactly. Look what's happening to your face right now.
I've seen millions of trees in my life.
Right. And so something as common as a tree, but watch this. Here's what's interesting about a tree. The nature of a tree is that it is both gravitropic and phototropic. Now, you've never probably heard, maybe, have you ever heard of the word gravitropic before? Phototropic?
Never.
Okay. So gravitropic means it grows away from light and towards gravity. That's the root system. It's gravitropic in nature. So the seed goes in the ground and then the tree starts growing down before it starts growing up. Now, here's what's interesting. When the seed is under the ground, it's dark under the ground, it's damp, and it has resistance. The root system has resistance. It has to push through the dirt to go down further, right? Well, once it breaks through the earth growing up, there's no more resistance. And the part of the tree that's above the earth grows towards light and away from gravity. So the tree is growing in two directions at the same time. Now, okay, how does that help me in my life though? That sounds really cool, right? Well, that is one of the most beautiful pictures of the way life works that you've ever seen, that I've ever seen. How? It's the work that you do in the dark when it's difficult and damp that makes the work that you do that everybody sees in the light work. Nobody saw you. Everybody sees you now in this beautiful studio, on this podcast, on Instagram Live, on YouTube, on whatever. Everybody can see that. Oh my goodness, David Shands. But they didn't see the gravitropic nature of your journey while you were on your way here, working deep into the wee hours of the morning to become the person. That's the root system. Now, everybody proclaims and professes to desire the fruit system. Everybody wants to grow up towards, just reach for the stars, and I want everybody to see how tall I can be and how sweet my fruit is and blah, blah, blah. Well, that sounds great. But if you're unwilling to go down, you cannot go up.